They said a body was found in the river, male, mid-30s. No ID. I watched the news on a gas station TV and wondered how long my family would assume it was me. 48 hours earlier, my father stood in my kitchen in Willow Glen, Ohio, shoes still damp from the rain, jaw wired tight. "You're paying Leela's debt," he said, dropping a folder that thumped like a gavel. 120,000. Due Friday. Leela, my younger sister, soft-voiced, forever rescuing stray cats, apparently owed a rehab ministry called New Harbor Fellowship. But the invoices looked like legal threats, the pastoral counselors like bill collectors, the logo too shiny for salvation. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you signed as guarantor," he said. I hadn't. The signature was mine, but it had angles I don't write, a slant my hand doesn't know. Forged. Dad's eyes never blinked. "If you don't pay, they'll take the house. Your mother will be in the street. Leela will go to jail." Fear climbed with cold, careful fingers. My father was a neighborhood Saint City Council candidate, church fundraiser, ho emperor. He spoke at barbecues like a sheriff in a borrowed halo. But I'd seen that same look the night Mom fell down the stairs and refused an ambulance. I called Leela. Straight to voicemail. I called Mom. "Do what your father says," she whispered, and hung up so quietly it felt rehearsed. Tia M. I walked into my office, opened the file drawer, and found a second copy of the guarantor contract already there, already waiting. Someone had been in my house. So I vanished, left my phone in a rideshare, pulled cash from an old college emergency account, ditched my plates. I rented a weekly room off I-77, a place that smelled like drowned cigarettes, and started a new notebook titled, "If I'm Wrong, I'm Dead." I traced New Harbor's P.O. Box to a Shell LLC to a downtown law firm with my father's campaign treasurer on its letterhead. By sunrise, I had a burner phone, a plan, and a question burning a hole in me. If Leela's debt was fake, what were they really buying, and what had I already paid for without knowing? And then my burner buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We know where you sleep. Bring cash, or we collect in person starting with your mother." New Harbor Fellowship looked like hope on Sundays and extortion on Mondays. Their Instagram was baptisms at sunset. Their courthouse filings were liens, garnishments, sealed settlements. I sat in my motel with stale coffee and a paralegal friend on speaker, Katie, who owed me for tutoring her through contracts. "Your dad's treasurer?" she said. "He used to clerk for Judge Armitage. Connections for days." I drove to New Harbor's campus, suburban brick, a cross so big it cast a shadow like a sword. I slipped into their financial healing seminar. The pastor smiled like a salesman and pitched restoration plans with interest rates dressed as faith commitments. When a woman asked about default, he said softly, "We don't let families fall apart." Behind him, two ushers stood like doormen at a casino. After I followed a deacon into a side office and saw a wall of locked file drawers. One was labeled with our subdivision's name, Sable Creek, Sable Creek. "My father's Hoa Kingdom," Katie texted. "Got something. Leela pled to a DUI 3 years ago. Judge Armitage. Fine. Sealed. Weird." My gut twisted. Leela doesn't drink. The night of that DUI, I remembered a dent in Dad's Tahoe and his voice low, precise. I handled it. At sunset, I tailed a black SUV from New Harbor to a brownstone downtown. It dropped off a man in a suit, Treasurer Avery, who took a back stairwell into Boren and Phelps, LLP, the same firm on the shell company tied to Leela's debt. I called my mother from a payphone. "Why did you let him put this on me?" Silence stretched, thin as ice. "Sometimes the only way out," she said, "is through." "Through what?" "Through you," she whispered, and the line went dead. Back at the motel, my door latch was scraped. Inside, a note on the bedspread. "Stop digging. Pay." There was a Polaroid tucked under it, my mother in her garden that afternoon. A long lens shot through the hedge. My burner pinged again. A new text. Green bubble. No name. Tomorrow, noon, Sable Creek Clubhouse. "Bring $120,000 or the police open what your father buried." Buried. The word made my scalp prickle. What exactly had my father put into the ground in our pretty, patriotic cul-de-sac? Sable Creek's clubhouse smelled like lemons and litigation. I came empty, no cash, just a pocket recorder and a heart sprinting in place. Noon. The room was empty except for a table, a folder, and a silver key fob. I recognized Dad's. Avery walked in first, tailored and bored. Behind him, 2 ushers from New Harbor, thick necks, polite smiles with no warmth. Last, my father. He didn't look at me. He looked past me, like I was a problem best handled off camera. Avery opened the folder. Promissory note. Reaffirming your guarantor obligations. Sign, and we extend terms. Decline, and he tapped a thin manila envelope. This goes to Detective Home at Precinct 3. What's in there? I asked. My father finally met my eyes. A plea, a warning. Don't, he said. Avery slid a photo across the table, a crushed bike under a Tahoe's bumper. Another photo, a mailbox post with a child's chalk drawings behind it. Then a police report I had never seen, dated the summer I was 16. Hit and run. Victim, Evan Morales, age 9. Witness statements, shaky and ballpoint. A plate number, my father's Tahoe. And then my name in a margin. Driver likely. The room tilted. I remembered rain, headlights, the sound like stepping on a bird's hollow bones. Dad's hands on the wheel. We're leaving, he'd said. I'll handle it. For years, the memory had been fog with teeth. Now it bit down. Avery's smile didn't reach his eyes. The debt paid keeps a certain family from speaking. It keeps a certain judge, our mutual friend, from revisiting a file. Leela took the DUI to give the system a bone. You, Mr. Halpern, oh, restitution, spiritual or otherwise. My mouth was dry sand. Why frame me now? Why not tell me the truth? My father's voice broke. Because the truth would eat you alive. Better you hate me. I almost signed. I almost fed the machine and crawled back into my coward's life. But a noise outside, heels on tile, made us all look up. Leela, pale, furious, eyes rimmed red. No more, she said. He doesn't sign. Avery nodded to the ushers. The lights blinked. The door locked behind Leela with a click, and then the clubhouse floor shuddered as if something heavy rolled beneath us, some mechanism under the stairs, and a taped voice crackled over the intercom. Everybody smile. The intercom voice was Katie. Please state your name for the record, she chirped, the way she does when she's scared. I exhaled a laugh that sounded like a cough. She'd wired the room, the HOA cameras, the PA everything, on a timer. Streaming to a private Reddit thread she'd titled R or Sable Creek and Phonsel, in a drive set to auto-share with 3 journalists. If the stream cut, Avery's face drained. Turn that off. Can't. Katie said through the ceiling. Say hi to the internet. Leela moved to me, chin up like the kid who used to dare me to jump off the dock. I took the DUI because he asked, she said, eyes flicking to Dad. He said it saved you. He never told me a child was hit. Dad looked 100 years old. The boy lived. He whispered. His brother. He wanted money or he wanted blood. I chose money. So you built a church, I said, to launder penance. Avery bristled. Watch your words, Leela snapped. We are, and pointed to the red recording light in the corner. The ushers stepped forward. Before they could touch me, the clubhouse doors banged open and neighbors spilled in faces I knew from barbecues and hoe rants. Katie had sent a community safety alert. People came. Phones rose like a field of little moons. Councilman Halpern, someone said to my father, voice sharp. What is this? Avery tried to pivot. A private mediation between a church and a PAC. Katie said sweetly. Between a judge and hush money. She clicked something, and a projector hummed alive. On the wall bloomed bank transfers. New Harbor to Morales Family Trust. Notes line itemed as restoration gifts. Dad closed his eyes. Evan is in college now, he said, voice shredded. We paid his tuition. We paid for Petey. We paid for his brother's rage until it cooled. Leela's hand trembled in mine. You didn't save us, she said to Dad. You made us debt. Sirens dopplered close. Maybe Katie had called. Maybe a neighbor had. Avery whispered into his phone and began to edge toward the back hall. I faced the crowd, the cameras, the years. It was me, I said, throat burning. I was driving. I left. Gasps rose like birds startled from a tree. I'm turning myself in. A hush fell. My father lunged not at me, at Avery snatching the manila envelope. Papers tore. Something small and black fell from the folder and skittered across the floor. A gun.an usher grabbed for it, and in the reflection of a stainless exit sign, I saw my mother standing in the doorway, arm extended. Eyes hard, holding a second gun none of us knew she owned. The room froze. Mom's hands didn't shake. Put it down, she said to the usher. He did, slowly. Avery, she added, kick your toy over here. He nudged the pistol toward the wall with a shoe. Mom didn't blink. Since when do you? Dad started. Since you brought a stranger's blood into my kitchen, she said, voice flat. Since I watched my children carry a sin they didn't make alone. Sirens stopped outside. Police shadows cut across the frosted clubhouse windows. But nobody moved. Not yet. Mom looked at me. Tell the whole truth, she said. Her eyes flicked just once to Dad. The whole truth had teeth. It had a date. It had desolate rain. The night I drove. I'd been in the passenger seat. 16. Stupid. We'd been arguing, me and Dad, about colleges, about leaving Ohio, about everything. The bike flared in the headlights. Dad braked too late. The thud was a god's fist. Silence swallowed the world. Go, he'd said, voice distant, like he was underwater. Take the wheel and drive home slow. I'll handle it. He stayed. He called it in. He lied. He made it his, not mine. Then he built a scaffolding of debts and favors, sturdy enough to carry us for years until it crushed us instead. I spoke. Every word. The crowd wasn't a crowd anymore. They were jurors, neighbors, people who'd eaten my mother's lemon bars. When I finished, something loosened inside me that had been knotted since I was a boy. Detective Holmes stepped in, palm open. No more theater, he said, but his voice wasn't unkind. He cuffed Avery first. Fraud, conspiracy, obstruction. He cuffed the ushers. He stared at Dad. Dad lifted his wrists. I obstructed justice, he said, not pleading. Just saying. A weather report. I laundered money through a church. Charge me. Home nodded. And you? He asked me. I'm ready, I said, but Mom stepped between us. He was a child, she said. Charge the grown man who made the choice. Dad met Holmes' eyes. She's right. He looked at me with the quiet of a man who has finally stopped running. Let me give you the only thing I can still give. Holmes led my father away. The door closed on the last of the sirens. Weeks later, I met Evan Morales in a coffee shop. He walked with a faint hitch, an old scar no worse than mine, the invisible kind. He listened. He didn't forgive me. He didn't have to. He just said, live like it costs something. Leela moved in with Mom for a while. The Hoa held a special election. New Harbor shuddered. Their cross came down at dawn like a stage prop. I mailed a check every month to the Morales Trust until the total matched the debt my father had demanded. On my memo lines I wrote, for the truth, and on a quiet night, under the same Ohio rain, I dug in our backyard where the garden flooded and found what Dad had buried long ago. Not evidence, not a gun, not a contract. A small wooden box with a child's chalk drawings. Washed and wrapped. Saved. A promise he made to someone else's son. I sat in the mud, the box in my lap, and understood the most devastating thing of all. My father had been both the reason I ran and the reason I still had anything left to run toward.